Breeze, Chief Encouragement Officer at Indie Books International. Welcome to our weekly Marketing with a Book and Speech podcast. And the real purpose of this is for the indie family and friends to have access to Mark and me and Devin and our expert authors. And we have a great one for you today. So thanks for joining us. We're going to have a little presentation and then we go to discussion. This is your chance, an open forum to ask any question you'd like. If you have the question, probably others have the question, and it'll be good to bring it up here. So I want to welcome all of you and first turn the talking stick over to Mark LeBlanc and let Mark give his welcome for the week. So Mark, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much, Henry, and thank you all of you for joining us. And we appreciate the opportunity to share some time and share maybe an idea or two and listen to you and answer any questions that you might have. My tip for the week or this particular episode is understanding the power and the impact of a quantity pricing plan for your book. Some of you know that I've had over 800 quantity orders of my little blue book, Growing Your Business, probably the stat that I'm most proud of. And you can refer to it as either accidentally brilliant or divinely inspired. I tend to go with divinely inspired, but one day I came up with this little pricing plan that said, if you buy 25 copies or more of my book, you get 25% off. If you order 50 copies or more, you get 50% off. And that little pricing plan led to over 800 quantity orders of my book, Growing Your Business. By the way, that doesn't mean if you order 100, you get 100% off. And there are a lot of people who've said to me over the course of time, do you really think you need to give 50% off? Couldn't you go 30 or go 40% off? And sure, but I think 800 quantity orders speaks for itself. And in the world of publishing, if we're open to giving Amazon.com 55%, of our sales, or if a Barnes and Noble called us and wanted 5 copies of your book, you'd be happy to send them 5 copies at 50% and pay for the shipping and handling there, and the return shipping and handling for those that don't sell in 6 months. So I just thought that it was just easy, and I can remember it. So my encouragement to you would be, with your books, look at some kind of a simple pricing plan and watch your quantity orders grow. Now, just a side note, that was with my $10 book, Growing Your Business. With my $20 books, it's 20% off an order of 20 or more and 40% off an order of 40 or more. So it might depend on the book and your profitability, but start promoting a quantity pricing plan. You'd be amazed at how many, I'm going to say even normal people will order quantity orders of your book to give away as gifts to their clients and prospects and employees. So good luck with that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me personally. Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, Mark. I want to do a speed round. Producer Suzanne, maybe you can unmute everybody, or everybody can unmute themselves for this. And I'm going to call your first name, and then I just want you to introduce yourself and it's just, hi, my name, and I'm the author of title of the book and not subtitle. So just, you got it? It's your full name and the title of your book, but not the subtitle. And we'll go first with Astrid.
Hi, I'm Astrid Baumgartner, and I'm the author of Creative Success Now.
And Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Schmidt, and I'm the author of Make or Break Conversations.
Patty?
Hello, my name is Patty Watkins, and I'm the author of Land and Expand.
And Craig?
Hi, I'm Craig Lauder, and I'm the author of Smooth Selling Forever.
Brad?
Hello, I'm Brad Fisher, and I'm the author of Family Business Abundance.
Teresa?
I'm Teresa Ashby, and I'm the author of Better Implementation Now.
David?
Hi, I'm David Goldman, and I'm the author of The Road to Happiness.
Art, your upcoming book.
Hi, I'm Art Saustra. I'm the author of The Noble CFO.
John, your upcoming book.
Hi, I'm John Lockhorst, and I'm the author of Mission Critical Leadership.
Okay. Chris, your upcoming book.
I'm Chris Hodges, currently the author of Humans and Magical Machines.
And Bill, your upcoming book.
Hi, I'm Bill Leiter. I'm the author of Mastering Your Balance.
Okay. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, the other Brad.
Oh, the other Brad. Brad, your upcoming book.
How are you? I've never ever seen another Brad on a Zoom call.
Yeah, you're the good Brad.
So my name is Brad Pierce, and my book is called Sustainability Mindshift.
Great. Teresa, did I do you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, everybody. So part of this is we're going to have you speaking maybe 5 minutes on some of the future calls. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me an email and we can do it. The more family knows each other and knows a little bit about your book, the more that we can recommend each other and amplify what people are doing. So that's a part. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce one of our authors, Michael Hauge. As Mark said, Michael is kind of a big deal. So people in Hollywood, like Will Smith, go to Michael for story consultations and help with their stories. Michael has a best-selling book that's been a bestseller for 20 years in that screenwriting world. Very well known there. He came to us because he wanted to do a business book on storytelling made easy and how business people like the people on this call, can use the storytelling secrets of Hollywood, which Michael calls the emotion picture capital of the world, how people can use the storytelling secrets from Hollywood to tell business stories that will help people understand their product or their service. So he put that book together. It's been one of the best-selling books Indie Books has published, and we're very proud of that book, and we're very proud of our association with Michael. And he's often taught and been very generous with his time in teaching for us. And because he believes in free speech, and we asked him to give another free speech today. And please welcome Michael Hauge.
Michael, you're muted.
Myself there.
Good.
Okay, wait. Am I hearable now?
You're live. You're live.
Okay. Why? Okay. So thanks for having me. And Henry, do you want me to start yammering, or do you have something you want to kick off, or Mark, a question, or just start talking?
Your 15 minutes of fame starts right now, Michael. Go.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about storytelling, obviously, and in particular, what I call 6-step success stories. And that is how I went about taking the structure of Hollywood movies that I have, and my approach to that I've been developing for more than 30 years and have work on Hollywood movies, and streamlining it and perfecting it so it would apply specifically to people who aren't professional storytellers. They're not screenwriters or filmmakers or novelists, but who want to use story to not only persuade people to take action, but also to create a much deeper connection with those who are reading your book or hearing you on stage or hearing you on a Zoom call or even going to your website, etc. Because story is the most powerful method you have for not only establishing connection with your audience and establishing your expertise and getting them to like and trust you, but it's a means of doing what I call stealth marketing. It's a way of bragging without really bragging, because in a good story, you can reveal your expertise, reveal your experiences in a way that will persuade people to want to work with you without ever saying, please buy my book or please hire me. And these 6 steps are the ways, the 6 steps a hero of a story must go through to achieve their goal and complete the story you want to tell. Now, before I get into the 6 steps very quickly, I want to preface it by saying the number one goal you have as a storyteller in whatever context is the same as Henry alluded to, the number one goal of any movie or any novel or whatever, and that is you must elicit emotion. You must create an emotional experience for, I will say, your prospects, whether it's a reader of your book or someone who might hire you or whatever. Because if you want them to make the decision to take action, to better their lives by following the process in your book, to hire you as a consultant or a coach, if that's someone you are, to make a sales pitch or whatever, those decisions, taking that action is primarily an emotional decision. And if a story creates enough a positive emotional experience, you're actually giving the person you're telling the story the subconscious experience of succeeding the way you succeeded if it's an autobiographical story, the way one of your clients succeeded if you're using it as a case study or whatever. And for that story to elicit emotion, you want to be sure that the main character, the hero, the protagonist, if you will. A hero, by the way, is not someone who's heroic. It's just an ordinary person who has a goal that you or your process is going to help, or that you were able to succeed at using the process you're writing about. So here are the 6 steps you want to take the character through, pretty much in sequence. You can juggle it, but this is the primary way you want to do it. Step number 1 is what I call the setup. This is where you introduce your hero living her everyday life before she begins the journey that the story is about, before she starts pursuing any particular goal, or before she starts trying to solve whatever problem your book is about, let's say. So this is like the before picture of this character. It's their everyday life, close to the time when they started taking action, but right before it. And you present that character in the setup in a way that gets us to empathize with that character. So if you're talking about yourself, if it's your own story about how you succeeded in the past or some experience you had, this is where you establish that emotional connection with your audience or with your reader. And the way you do that, the way you create that empathy is primarily by either making that hero, whether it's you or someone else, sympathetic, they're a victim in some way of some undeserved misfortune, or they're in jeopardy, they're in danger of losing something of vital importance. They might lose their job, they might have a medical condition that they're in danger of succumbing to or having a much more difficult life, and you're going to give them a process for correcting that. But there's some threat waiting for them in the future. And the third way you create empathy is make them likable by showing how they help other people with their problems. So that's it. You never want to start the story after your hero starts pursuing the goal that the story's about. We have to see the before picture. We have to meet them first. Next step is what I call the crisis. That means it's really referring to the tipping point. It's that moment when, I'll say you're the hero. It's the moment when you stopped tolerating some negative situation, some situation where you lack something or were unhappy or whatever it might be, and decided, okay, now I'm going to take action. Now I'm going after this goal. There was always some event that occurred that moved you to that action. Now, even though you may think, well, I wanted this for a long time and I finally just decided, I guess I'll go for it. No, something happened. If you started pursuing your goal on Wednesday, then something happened on Tuesday to make you do that. Okay, so what was that and how did you react initially to that? Because when that event occurs, you don't just start taking action, you start figuring out, what am I going to do about this thing? Maybe you lost your job. Maybe that was the thing. Okay, so you didn't go right at work on another job. You had to think, oh my God, what am I going to do about that? How will I make the bill, meet the bills that I have to pay? Where am I going to find a new job, et cetera, et cetera. So the crisis is the event that occurs to the hero that forces them to take some action. And the initial action is just going to be, how do I deal with this new world I've entered? Then step number 3 is pursuit. And step number 4 is conflict. Those two are intertwined. When you are going through this questioning period after the crisis, you finally will reach a point where you decide, not only I'm going to take this specific action, but you formulate and declare a specific goal that you want to achieve. And if you're telling your story, you always want to give your hero the most visible, vivid goal you can, something we can envision when we hear it. If you just say, I had a client and they started working with me because they wanted to be rich, that's not a very good story because we can't picture that. And your job as a storyteller is to create a movie, so to speak, in the mind of your reader. So instead of I want to be rich, if you had a client who said, I've got to make $50,000 in the next 3 months or I'm going to lose my home. Now you have a very vivid goal that we're rooting for. So the pursuit now is, what are the steps that you took to achieve that specific finish line, to reach that finish line, to win that goal? Or what were the steps that your client or satisfied customer or whatever took? What did you do? If it's a story about someone who worked with you, we want to know what's it like to work with you. So what were the actions that this character took? But at the same time, as they're pursuing the goal, what were the obstacles they had to overcome? Because you only want to tell stories about pursuing goals that are hard to achieve. Even if you're saying these were obstacles as they worked with me, because there's always setbacks, there's always obstacles that a character has to overcome or go around. And you want to say, even while I was working with them, this happened, because then guess who's going to swoop in and tell them how they can overcome that obstacle, but you, if you were a coach and they are your hero of your story. Or what did you have to overcome? And the reason you want that, besides it makes your story more credible, that everything wasn't just easy peasy, is your goal is to elicit emotion, and emotion grows out of conflict, not desire. It's the obstacles that you faced that make that story compelling. That's what we're waiting to hear. How are you going to overcome this? What's going to happen next? So there's the steps toward the goal, and there's the obstacles until you reach step 5, which is the climax. It's just like it is in a movie or a TV episode or whatever. That is the specific moment where the hero of your story achieved whatever that goal is. And you must include that. You not only want to say, and they crossed the finish line, but you want to make that a scene, a moment in the story, so that we are emotionally involved and so that we can celebrate your victory, if it's the story about you, along with you. Because your audience, your readers have empathized with this hero, they've become that hero psychologically, subconsciously. And so when the hero wins, we win if we're reading the story in your book, let's say. So you have to give your reader that experience. But you don't want to end the story with the finish line. The final step is what I call the aftermath, because you want to not only say yes by working with me, or yes, as I learned how to do the skill that I'm going to give you in my book, then you want to be able to say, and after I used my process to achieve that goal, or after my client did, then they were able to go on, and this is the life they're living now. Or a year later, they were in a new job. Or a year later, they had made their first $1 million. Or a year later, after doing the health regimen that I prescribed, they were running a marathon, or whatever that might be. But you want the end of the story to paint a picture or create a movie of the rewards the hero is, what do you say, achieving or enjoying because they made that whole journey. And as much as possible, you want the description of that aftermath to match the life that your target readers want to have. So if your target market are people who want to be healthy or healthier, then you want to be sure the aftermath for the hero of your story is a picture of someone who has achieved better health or is accomplishing physically things they couldn't do before. Or if it's I do a lot of work with internet marketers and coach them. And internet marketers almost universally share a desire for a career that is not only lucrative, but they especially want freedom and independence. And so any marketing story directed at internet marketers should have an aftermath that shows the free, independent life that character is living. And if you take your hero of your story through those 6 steps in the pursuit of a specific goal, I guarantee you your stories, and therefore your books, are going to have much greater impact. You're going to elevate them to about the top 10% of stories being told, in my experience. So there, I don't have an aftermath to that story, but I wanted to come in under 15 minutes. So now, Henry or Mark or anyone, any questions about any of those 6 steps? And then I can go into more depth with them.
Oh, I got questions and comments.
I got questions.
Man,
I got a billion of them.
So one is, I'm going to shift gears off of storytelling. Thank you so much for sharing that. When your book came out and we did the 99-cent campaign, do you remember that? Can you share a little of that on how that went from your perspective? I'll fill in gaps from our perspective.
Yeah, I could even go through the 6 steps easily.
If you'd like, please.
I wanted a new book. And then I realized, okay, I've got to have a new book if I want to enter this market. That was the tipping point. That was the crisis. I started, what am I going to do? And because I knew Henry and Mark and had met them through Patricia Fripp and we'd become friends, I thought, I want them to publish my book. So our mutual goal became, let's publish this book and make it a success. And so I worked with them, they did the heavy lifting as far as I'm concerned. I wrote it, but they were the masters of how to present it and market it and so on. So when it came time to take it out to Amazon, at your suggestion, I won't say insistence, but it was close. We promoted it. Our initial offer, or welcome to the world offer, was 99 cents. And so when we did that on Amazon, the results were that within 24 hours, the next day, it was the #1 book on Amazon in 3 different characters. I'm so caught up in character. 3 different categories. It went to #1, and it was one of the top 100 books of all Kindle books being sold at that time. So, and I don't remember the exact sales numbers, you might, Henry, but I was very, very pleased. My aftermath was, not just even, it wasn't so much the money, but I got known much more widely in the world I wanted to enter, because I'd been known in Hollywood, but not in the world of business and entrepreneurship and so on.
Well, we share a distinction when you talk about those 3 categories, because one of them was #1 sales and marketing. Now that is the entire sales and marketing category. When Michael started moving up the top 10 list, it created synergy. It was a snowball effect, a chain reaction. So people started also ordering it in the paperback edition, and people were saying good things. We wanted to get reviews that were verified purchase reviews on Amazon. The Amazon algorithm values that much higher than just if you give somebody a book and they go on and review it. So because these people bought the book and Michael skimmed over, that was a knockdown, drag out fight between Michael, his assistant in Nevada, Devin, and I on what we were going to charge for that book. And, you know, free, or it's going to be $4.99, or back and finally we settled on $99, which turned into a magic number. And we've used it for many authors since then. But you had an asset, an opt-in list. How many people are on your opt-in list, Michael?
Now it's like, it's just north of 18,000. Because thanks to the book, among other things, it's increased greatly in the realm of business, I call it. At that point, though, it was more than 15,000.
Yeah, so 15,000. And through the years, how had you built up that list? What were you doing to give away and do things to build up that list?
Mostly writing and talking, because I had 2 other books and that had built it, but I've been doing seminars about story, starting with screenplays, then for novels, and then with business. I've been doing seminars around the world for more than 30 years. And every time I spoke in front of a group, passed around a sheet or cards to say, please put down your email address so that you will be on my newsletter list. And then I usually say I have a monthly newsletter that comes out about every 10 weeks. But at any rate, so that accumulated people as well. So I got known online and people would subscribe it, being on podcasts when podcasts began and so on. So it's any possibility you have of getting the email address of anyone you encounter, including getting email addresses by publishing, like putting articles. Now you could do YouTube. That didn't exist, for most of the time I was doing this. But anytime you can offer someone some of your expertise on Facebook or through LinkedIn or articles or whatever, then you make a free offer for something, and then people will give their email so they can download the free thing you're giving them. And whatever it is, it's something related to your book. In fact, we're going to make that same offer now to anyone, or when we reach that point, you'll see it in action.
Make the offer now. Demonstrate it.
So the 6 steps that I just gave you, I have a chart of those 6 steps that lays it out in very sort of left brain graphic form with explanations that are a little more detailed of each one of those steps and how you achieve that. And so you can get that chart for free just by going to the link that I think Suzanne is putting in the chat room right now. So if you just go to that link, and it will say, please give us your email address. And then as soon as you do, within a matter of minutes, however fast the internet's working, then you will have a downloadable color chart of the 6 steps.
When Michael speaks to a live audience, remember those, he has these bookmarks. And I've seen where he's hidden the bookmark at 250 seats. He just hid them underneath the tablecloth or whatever. And then at the end of his speech, he goes, I have a free gift for everybody. It's underneath the tablecloth. And everybody like there was a $100 bill under there. They go, oh, look, it's a bookmark and it has the 6 steps on the bookmark. So my suggestion to you is get a bookmark. People value them. And
And be sure, if I can add,
yeah,
be sure the bookmark is of value besides marking the book, a book. I mean, the reason it was something I had also done with a previous book, the 6 stages, I call it, of a movie. And though there's been tens of thousands of those floating around the world for all those lectures, but be sure, I always believe anytime you're in front of a group, they need to take away something that is of value if they never see you again, whether they buy your book or not. So what I do, because I've got this chart, it's just a diagram of the chart with the explanations on the other side of the bookmark. And so put something from your book that is of value on the bookmark so they will, use it. A lot of people have told me they have that chart, the one you're going to get free or a bookmark version of it, taped to their computer screen because they look at it as they're developing their story. And I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. The first time we met, here's the first time we met. It was, the place is San Francisco. I do not recall the year. I'm supposed to if I'm doing a good storytelling setup, a la Patricia Fripp. I'll never forget the day that I met Michael Hauge at the National Speakers Association meeting in San Francisco. So Mark LeBlanc spoke that day and Michael spoke that day. I was in the audience, and I've always had an interest in writing screenplays. And Michael, I don't know if you'll recall it, but Michael had a generous, ridiculous offer at the end where you get all this stuff, including one-on-one meeting with him for, I'd like to say it was under $400. Do you recall what your price point might have been or what it is now when you do those things?
Well, yeah, it was less than it is now. So now it's my sort of baseline price for an hour is $475. I bet what I did there is made it half price. So it's probably 200 to 225, something like that for an hour. I would guess, I don't remember. I tell you what I do remember, and I'll just share that so Mark LeBlanc, in case he's dozing off, is I remember meeting Mark because we hadn't even actually, I don't think, shaken hands or whatever you say to meet, but he was a speaker, I guess, after my presentation. And so he was nice enough when he was talking about pricing your book to hold up my book on pitching called Selling Your Story in 60 Seconds. And he held it up and turned to me and said, Michael, this is a $20 book. You're charging too little. which was, I appreciated the advice, but I thought, really, in front of 150 people, you couldn't have just told me that in private. But that was it. I didn't remember. I thought we knew each other before then when we met at Lady and the Champs.
Oh, that was later when
because
Patricia came to Mark and I and said, you have to be a sponsor at my Lady and the Champs event in Las Vegas. And when Patricia Fripp, if you haven't met her yet, she's past president of the National Speakers Association with Mark. They've both been in that position, and she's British. And when she says to do something, you do it. She said, you have to be a sponsor. And we had just started Indie Books, and we didn't have any money. And it was like, Mark said she created you've heard of platinum and gold and bronze. She created a cellophane sponsorship for us to get us there and have a table in Las Vegas and be with people. And then Michael was presenting there, and we've been very supportive of each other ever since. You were in the family. Matter of fact, since you're in the family, tell them what your family name is.
Well, you'll have to tell the story. I'm known as Uncle Billy.
Billy, we're in Vegas and he's schlepping all his stuff and he has to get to a hotel and then he doesn't have a car. And I said, well, okay. So I had one of the Indie Books people. I said, we'll drive you to your hotel and back and handle all that for you. He wasn't even a client yet. And he goes, I said, Michael, you're part of the family. Like Uncle Billy and It's a Wonderful Life, the guy who got drunk and lost the deposit and almost sent Jimmy Stewart to prison. That member of the family. So I've called him Uncle Billy ever since. So we're going to move on. Thank you so much, Michael. Hang around. There might be questions for you. There's one more thing I wanted to share, and then you can have rebuttal on this if you like. So, as I said, my hobby is writing I'm sorry. Ooh. Because my coach is Michael Hauge, and when I said that once, he said no. It was like, if this is your hobby, we're not working together anymore. This is your job. And screenwriter is the only job in Hollywood that nobody has to give you permission to have. You just decide you're going to do it. And I said, well, I haven't sold a screenplay yet. That selling a screenplay doesn't make you a screenwriter. Writing a screenplay makes you a screenwriter. Selling it is the next part, the pitch book, as we said. Michael introduced me to several of the other big players in advising screenwriters. And for my money, Michael is the best. Michael has an Audible book that I give my 5-star recommendation to. It's called The Hero's Two Journeys. It's Michael and Chris Vogler. Chris was a story executive at Disney, and he wrote a manifesto type memo. He just like, what story's about. And people from other studios started calling and saying, can we get a copy of the Chris Vogler memo? So it turned into a book, and then it turned into this road show between Michael and Chris Vogler about story and the inner journey, the outer journey. So the hero's two journeys. So I listened to this several times, and like once a year I listen to the whole thing and always get some new nuggets on that. So I know like Brad, well, we got two Brads. I know one of Brad is very into story. I know a lot of you are very into story, and I highly recommend you get this and listen to it. That's The Hero's Two Journeys. Michael, do you want to have a rebuttal on The Hero's Two Journeys? And you're muted. There you go.
I caught it this time. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a rebuttal. Everything you said is true. I was just going to point out the freebie that we just offered. You go to storymastery.com/. If you don't put in the / you go to my website, and you can get it's a recording of a seminar that Chris and I did, and you can get it on video, download it, or you can get it in audio, either one. You can also go to Amazon. In fact, I think you're routed there. But anyway, you can find out about it there. That was, by the way, it was that recording that led to Will Smith calling me the first time to ask for advice about I Am Legend. And it's also that recording that led to me meeting Russell Brunson and him putting me in his book, if any of you know about ClickFunnels and so on. So thank you for plugging that or saying that. Yeah.
I was a taskmaster on Michael today, limiting his time, because we're really emphasizing the need to be able to stand and deliver a 15-minute talk. Rock the short talk, as our author Eleni Kalakos says. And Des Thornton teaches that. We're going to have Ostrid talk about her 15-minute TED talk and how she got that and what you deliver on. Mark makes the point that we don't have to wait for TEDx to anoint us. We should do our own 15-minute talk. So Michael, you did a good job. Now, as someone who has booked you as a speaker in the past, I love your signature Will Smith story. And you told me that takes 8 minutes to tell. If you're willing to right now, I'd love to give you those 8 minutes and let everybody hear that story.
Oh, sure. No, I didn't rehearse. Yeah. Okay, so for this story, we're going back I just measured it again because I lose track of when, but I think we're talking about 16 years ago. But whatever it was, I was in my office. It was a February evening, and I was in this very office you're seeing behind me here, and I was doing something that, you know, is to me one of the most important activities I have in my career, and that is I was just staring out the window. And as I sat there looking out the window, I was thinking about the inner circle. And just to be absolutely clear, if you can't pick up on it from how excited I was to tell you about the 6 steps, I love what I do. I mean, I've been blessed with a career where I have basically for 40 years, you know, earned a living talking about stories and movies. And it's just wonderful, but that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't succumb to, you know, feeling sorry for myself or whatever. And so as I'm looking in the dark through my window, I'm thinking about the inner circle. Now, the inner circle, for those of you who might not know what it is, and I'm sure you all are aware when you hear the name, that's just the group of people in whatever enterprise you're a part of that are at the pinnacle. So if you're an attorney, there is an inner circle of attorneys in your city or county or state or in the country or whatever. And if you're a doctor, I'm sure there are inner circles of doctors and inner circles of speakers and so on. But the world capital of inner circles is Hollywood, because it's all about rank and status and so on. And so I'm thinking about those people who have just reached the top of the mountain as far as Hollywood is concerned. They're the filmmakers, the stars and directors and so on, who everybody knows. They have most of the power. They all seem to be friends with each other. And I always know how to recognize the inner circle because I'm never in it. And so I'm sitting there thinking, God, you know, I'm happy with what I've done, and I've, you know, worked on movies and so on, but I've never felt like I was in the inner circle. And then the phone rings as I'm sitting there. So I push the button and say, hello, it's Michael Hauge. And on the other end, this woman says, my name is Tracy and I work with Will Smith. So I take her off speaker and said, you mean Will Smith, Will Smith? And she said, yeah, that's the one. And she said, Will is working on a movie in Canada. They're already in production. It's called I Am Legend. And they're still struggling with a few elements of the story as they're shooting. And Will wants to know, would you be willing to look at the script and give him any suggestions or comments or feedback you could about it? And so I paused, as Henry taught me, I paused 5 seconds for dignity. And then he said, yeah, I think I can find the time. So she emailed the script and I went through it and I read it twice and took all my notes and I, you know, wrote up, I think, a 5-page document with all my suggestions. I emailed it back to Tracy and I thought, now that was cool. I went out and said to my wife, Vicky, how neat is this? The #1 movie star in the world wanted to know what I thought about a movie he's making right now. And I thought, nifty. And then about 2 days later, I get a call, push the button, it's Michael Hauge. And on the other end, I heard the voice say, hi, my name's Tracy. You remember I work with, yeah, Will Smith, I said. And she said, you know, Will looked at your comments. He really liked them. He has some ideas of his own about the movie. And he wants to know, would you be willing to get on the phone with him so he could bounce his ideas off of you and see what your thoughts are about them as they're working on this movie? And I said, yeah, I think I can find the time. And so we set up a time that I was going to get to have a call with Will. But I said, before you go, I got to ask you something. How does Will Smith even know who I am? I mean, what would have prompted him to contact me about looking at this script? And she said, well, I know he's had your book, Writing Screenplays That Sell, for some time, but I think it was because he recently saw a video you did with Chris Vogler called The Hero's Two Journeys. And he loved what you talked about there, especially about the difference between our protective identities and our essence, and how in a good love story, for instance, those things have to connect between the two people. And I thought, neat, that's good to know. So 2 days later, I'm sitting in my office. I got there way early, which is idiotic because I didn't want to be late, but then I'm just sitting there getting nervous for a half hour. But I figured I'm cool because I have the script, I have my notes, I have my Xanax, I'm going to be ready to go. Finally, the phone rings. It's not Will because somebody makes calls for Will and then put him on. So they said, I have Will for you. Will gets on the phone. And so, hi, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. And then I said, look, I know you want to talk about the movie and the script, but I've got to do the fan thing first. And he said, okay, because he knew what I meant. And I said, I just want to tell you that Hitch is one of my all-time favorite movies. In fact, I use it as an example when I lecture about screenwriting because it, to me, is the perfect example of a romantic comedy and hits all the right beats in the way the story is developed and the structure and the characters. And Will says, well, I should probably tell you that the entire time we were developing the screenplay for Hitch, we kept asking ourselves, now, are we doing what Michael Hauge said we should do and having these two people connect at the level of essence? And I thought, I'm in the circle. And that was one of the high points of my entire career because I'd never had anybody tell me that my principles had been used on a movie that I ended up really liking. So that was it. It was also the beginning of a relationship where I got to work on other movies and finally was put on retainer by his company. So there it is. I've left him. I can't hear Henry. So
yeah. This is how we applaud on Zoom. We wave our hands. So let's have a round of applause for Michael.
You got to warn me. I don't know.
It's the new rule.
I saw Mark doing it. I thought he was, signaling me I want more than my 8 minutes or something.
Yeah. Okay, so let's deconstruct some stuff here. Because this is like the magician talking about the magic trick. Because you need to be the magicians doing the magic trick. Mark, I hate to keep putting words in your mouth, but I'll just do this here. Mark teaches, and you really, if you haven't had a chance, you should attend Mark's Achiever's Circle or his Table of 12 and really get some of the art and science of business development. He'll tell you there, he has built his business on 2 showcases a month. So Michael did this as a showcase for us. So you're an ideal audience for him. You can either become a client or be a referral source for him, perhaps for a paid speaking gig. I want you to be referral sources for each other for paid speaking gigs. That's one way to pay it forward in this group. And it's the secret of getting those speaking gigs is not convincing strangers how great you are on the internet. It is about the relationships we make. And relationships you give before you get. So, if there's something you can do to help one of the other people on the call, great. Also, look for opportunities like this. Mark has been very generous in me that he's allowed me to speak at his Achiever Circle, and I get 17 minutes. And you gotta hit the mark. You can always do less. You can't go over, because then they're not going to punish you, but you might not get invited back to speak again or as often as all this. So there's a lot of that going on. Think about how you can speak for each other, put events together. Give something away for free. Be generous. Build a list. Publishing your book is the starting line. There is no finish line to this race, unless it's what Michael Gerber, the author of the E-Myth, said was your COD, which is your crap out date. We all have an expiration date, like the milk in the fridge or the cheese. So there's a day that we're going to go bad, but up until then, we're in the game. We're doing the work. And showcases, giving away content for free in front of a target-rich audience can lead to paid gigs and leads to attracting high-paying clients. In the close here, there's just one more thing I wanted to talk about. And we had a question come in, and we're going to have some meetings with people, but I think everybody would like to know it. Our number one go-to strategy is to send a book a day, 20 books a month, to create what Mark would call an opportunity 20 list every month. Who are 20 people, if you got the book in their hands, could book you as a speaker or could hire you to be a consultant to them? You put together a list. What's the perfect way of doing this? I don't know. But you can think through this and I'll coach you on it. So you come up with an opportunity list of 20 every month. You don't have to overthink it and create a list of 240 for the year. Just start with 20 and attack it for this month. For me this month, my opportunity 20 list were 20 podcasters who do podcasts for consultants. One of the best podcasts I've been on, Michael introduced me to the host. It's Onward Nation with Stephen Wozner, Onward Nation. I've been a guest several times. I've gotten clients from being a guest. It's great. Well, I've identified 20 of these. Well, with Suzanne, my producer's help, we've gone on LinkedIn and LinkedIn with all 20. I've offered all 20 to write a Forbes.com column about them. For the people we got an address for, they got a copy of the book. And now they're getting emails from me because I've listened to their podcast. I've made notes about what I liked. I'm sending them emails complimenting them on their podcast and then offering to be a guest and saying I'm using the language of the soft knock at the door. If you'd be open to having me as a guest on your podcast, that would be great. Know you're busy, let's get together in 30, 60, 90 days on this. So I'm respectful of their time and how busy they are. Now, in the last couple of minutes, one story from Michael and I. Michael, you might want to be off mute for this so you can answer, because I started telling Michael this story about this mutual author we know who I said has passed away and he's no longer with us, and wrote a book about the great comedians. And Michael, you told me that give him the name and the status of this person.
I'm sorry, I don't know who you're talking about.
Larry.
Wild. Larry Wild, right?
Larry Wild. Michael said, Henry, Larry Wild's alive. I just saw him the other day. So Larry Wild has a great book, and you can also get him on Audible, where he interviewed the great comedians. But he has a classic story which has a lesson for all of us. It's when he was just a young man. He was just starting this project, and he had interviewed the Georgie Jessel, the Toastmaster General, old Friars Club roast master from New York. And Jessel was very impressed with Wild's research and the questions he asked. And they're in New York City. And he said, well, tell me, how can I help? Is there somebody who you want to reach? And he said, well, my dream is Jack Benny, but I've tried to reach him and, I get nothing. He goes, oh, well, Jack's a good man. Let me call him. And he picks up the phone and he gets Jack Benny on the line. And he starts off this way. He goes, Jack, that article in Variety about you was so true. It was so great. Those things that they pointed out, and he gave some specific things. He goes, that was just really good. And then Jack Benny, well, thank you, George. Well, George, that's probably not why you called. Why'd you call? He goes, oh, well, thanks. I've got this young kid here. I think he's really good. He's an author. He's done a lot of research. I think you'd like to talk to him. Well, sure, Jack Benny said, give him my personal number. And the next time he's in LA, we can get together. So Georgie Jessel gives him the number. And Larry said, what I learned from it was how he asked. He didn't just go right to the ask. He first gave a compliment, a sincere, specific compliment to Jack Benny, then the ask. But the next part of the story was Larry Wild went and got an airplane ticket and flew out to LA immediately. And the next day, oh, Jack, hi, Larry, I'm in LA. And that's how he got the interview. And if that story is familiar to some of you, the ones where I have just happened to be in cities where there's people I need to meet, I've copied it from that story. I thought, that's brilliant. People are saying, well, the next time you're in Tampa, let's get together. Or the next time you're up in Hollywood, let's get together. Well, it just so happened I got up there really quick and we got together. So I leave that with you too. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Michael, and thank you all authors for attending. Send me an email if you want to do a 5-minute review of your book on one of the future calls. We're going to do this every week. Sometimes Mark can join us, sometimes not. I won't be here every one. Maybe Devin will cover, but every week you have an access to talk to us. So thank you, everybody, and wish you a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.